Welcome to the Average Punters podcast. I'm your host, Michael Chich. Today we're talking UFC. A huge card happened yesterday. We're also going to preview the Adesanya-Costa card later on. That's coming up next week. And here to join me today, as usual on a Monday morning, I'm joined by Mig of the Mike Monroe Show. Mig, how you doing, mate?
Good morning, Mr. Chich. How are we going?
Good. I'm absolutely laden with content of the UFC. And I guess I wanted to talk a little bit at just off the bat because we've been pumping this guy up a lot and for good reason. And we thought that his hype train might be derailed, but there was just absolutely no chance of that happening in hindsight. Our man Khamzat Chimaev KO'd Gerald Meerschaert in 17 seconds. And that was absolutely ridiculous. Just give me what was your reaction if you do like a mini reaction video right now? Hamza KOs him in 17 seconds.
Sometimes you follow a sport, you follow sports entertainment, you watch things, you're invested in the storyline. You got on one side Gerald Meerschaert, Cinderella man. On the other side, Khamzat Chimaev, the man who's getting the ultimate push. That he's come in 2 wins in 10 days, 3 wins, well, not yet, but could be 3 wins in 66 days up until that point. But face him off, his biggest, Khamzat's biggest test yet, and 17 seconds. Like, you couldn't script this shit. All I wanted to do was text you and be like, Khamzat fucking Chimaev. But we're very spoiler sensitive with each other because, just in case someone's got work, we're watching it at different times and stuff. But that aside, man, I just wanted to let this out yesterday, but I didn't want to because I wanted to save it for today at the same time. But Khamzat Chimaev, man, and because I was also coming around on Meerschaert from the standpoint of, last week's pod, we were talking about how I'm not really, don't really know him that well. I didn't say this, but a bit of a journeyman, I guess. I was thinking in mind. But, upon hearing his interviews and stuff, I was really liking his attitude. But Khamzat, man, so there's so much to be said about this from the Khamzat's only a wrestler, Khabib 2.0, etc., to just coming out sparking with the boxing. I feel like there is something to be said on the other side about, so I'm not sure what to exactly call it, but it's sort of like a deer in the headlights, right? Where you've got someone like a cowboy against Conor McGregor, or you've got potentially what happened to Meerschaert versus Khamzat, where you just look, even though these guys may have lost the fight in any sort of, capacity, 10 times out of 10, you put them in there, I still believe that sort of spotlight does take a toll. And then, to some extent, the fighter may be going into a fight with just added pressure and added expectation. It's absolute do or die, which I imagine it is every time, but to the extent where it may also have like a bit of a stunting effect.
I think that's a really good point. And I was going to also say, I think the fact that the first 2 fights that Chimaev has had in the UFC, they were like ground and pound maulings. And I think that might have also contributed. Maybe Meerschaert was waiting for a takedown, or he thought that the fight was going to end up there pretty quickly. And yeah, like you said, he came out and just sparked him with a right hand in 17 seconds and a hard, straight, clean right. And I don't think he was expecting that at all. I mean, obviously, if he did know it was coming, he would have ducked it. But I mean, it just goes to show, like, I'd sort of pigeonholed him as a sort of like wrestler in that sense, like like another Khabib sort of thing. But the fact that he can knock people out just makes him a whole different animal, even to a guy like Khabib.
Just to add to the perfect, quote unquote, perfect storyline as well, you've got, it's almost like, the audacity of them booking, him 2 fights when he's got such a beast like Meerschaert in front of him. He got the perfect scenario. He ended the fight with 1 punch and took nothing. If you have a fight soon, that's what you do, right? And it's like everyone was sort of saying, like, and to no fault of Gerald Meerschaert, all the respect in the world to Gerald Meerschaert because just great fighter. But Oh, I forgot my thought while I was being a bit of a cuck there,
Well,
Chich. So,
I think on that point, like I heard Dana say during the pre-fight press conference that they kind of have to book certain fights in advance, due to the fact
right,
that you need to give Damian Maia, if that is who he's going to fight next, a chance to
right,
actually prepare for it if it is going to be soon. So, in
right.
their defense, if they think, all right, we want to turn this guy around really quickly, which hasn't happened before, from what Dana was saying, like that quickly, on a consistent basis. Like he's obviously an anomaly in that regard. Like they kind of have to get Mino. So I don't think it was meant to be
Mhm.
disrespectful intentionally, even though obviously you
Yeah,
could
right.
leave it that way if you are GM3, let's
I
say.
mean, you've just got a guy who's that overly keen. You know, he's there, keen, ready to do it. Why wouldn't you thrust him into that sort of upward trajectory?
I can almost like I was saying this to another friend because like a couple of other mates hit me up just like about Hamzat specifically, and like I kind of want to see him against Usman already. I know that's absolutely ridiculous because because he's like the cream of the crop and that's a whole different beast. But just the just we don't know what level this dude is at. Like we haven't seen any flaws at all. He's been steamrolling dudes, and I just kind of want to see if he can like legitimately do it. But I think I'm getting a bit ahead of myself because,
Yeah, I
obviously you want to
just
build these dudes up. You don't want to like, you want to give them a full training camp and all those sorts of things. But man, like this dude's confidence, that is something that you very rarely see. Maybe Conor McGregor when he was rising up the ranks as well, but it's pretty unbelievable. He genuinely believes he's going to smash everyone, and so far that's exactly what he's done. So
I think what Dana's also sort of alluded to was like you've had a bunch of dudes who have come out, spark dudes. Even the Connor rise was quite quick, but within that, you've quite regularly got guys saying, I want to turn it around quick. I'm going to get back in the gym straight away. I'm going to speak to my coaches. But rarely do you get a guy, I imagine, from the promoter's standpoint of the UFC, who actually signs the contract and he's there 10 days later and ready to fight despite all circumstances. So that's crazy. And just I remembered what I was going to say earlier, just in regards to you had all the guys like DC and a couple other people saying, from GM3 standpoint, you'd just be looking to hurt Khamzat, and just to be like, hey, you were in the octagon with me, so you can't go fight in a month. And so when I was saying you got the perfect storyline, that's sort of also that just adds to the cake. It's like, wow, man, like scathe free, absolutely incredible.
insane. We should talk about the main event as well. Colby Covington beat Tyron Woodley, ended up TKOing him in the fifth round. It seemed like, I mean, it was confirmed later on that Woodley had broken his rib. So it seems like something that may have been caused from when Colby hit him in the ribs along the way. But this is the third. I mean, Colby was very impressive, but it's the third loss in a row for Tyron Woodley. He's 38 years old, I believe, and it seems like at this point, it might be time for him to wrap it up. He doesn't seem like he can really stand with the highest level of competition just based on his past three fights. He hasn't really been competitive, and didn't really seem like he showed up, or maybe the blueprint's just out there to beat him from the Usman and the Burns fight at this point. So I don't really know what would keep him going at this point, but Colby was really impressive, and it seems like that kind of potentially sets up a fight with Masvidal if he's keen on that, or yeah, potentially someone else in the division. But he's definitely put himself in that sort of third spot after Usman and Burns. But yeah, what do you make of that fight as a whole?
Just honestly, Tyron Woodley is falling in and out of love, in and out of love
Oh
with
no.
with fighting, Chich, with fighting. Like he just, as a man who has never been in the octagon, he's just super gun shy. Um, I keep hearing pundits who know a lot more than me talk about how, generally speaking, if a fighter's not punching, if they're having issues throwing, they're probably a little bit shot. So just, watching the fight, I was like, here we go again, from the past two Tyron Woodley fights. So I had no sort of I didn't have too much emotional investment. You know, I was like happy for the better man to win, genuinely. And I thought uh, Colby definitely started a bit slower, but I think it also had to do with, Tyron had his defensive end pretty, okay. It's just getting his offense on, which doesn't really exist in his game anymore. So it took a while. So whereas like Usman just completely smothered him from start to finish, Colby more slow cooked him in a way. He had the first couple of rounds where the output was a little bit higher than Woodley, but then he really started to turn it up by rounds 3, 4. But I think round 4 he had like over 100 strikes to Tyron under 10. So very dominant performance by Colby, and I think if they had the fight when it was supposed to happen about 3 years ago, whatever, it would have been a little bit more competitive. But it is what it is. And well done to Tyron. His welterweight run was definitely incredible. But yeah, I just think it's just the natural father time has caught up. But,
Would you?
yeah.
I agree with all that you just said. Do you think Colby fights Masvidal next? Is that a fight that you'd want to see, or would you maybe wait for the winner of Burns and Usman, and then Masvidal maybe fights Diaz, or there's also Leon Edwards sort of waiting in the wings as well. Is that a fight that you might want to see, Colby Masvidal?
I'll fantasy book in a sec, Chich, but one thing I did think was pretty cool was Colby, despite what you hear, I don't know. Like, I get the vibes that he's probably not a bad guy because, for example, like, I don't know, after the fight and stuff like that, and in the post presser, when asked about Tyron and thoughts of Tyron, it was just like he still kept ringing the drum of like great champion, great thing, and he's like straight to the next. It's like about the next, which is like sort of a trope you see in like a McGregor or a Stylebender, where like they're picking out what's next. They're worried about the natural progression, So even though he is doing all this ridiculous shit, it does genuinely feel like a means to an end for him. So for whatever that's worth, well done. In terms of who he fights next or who I think he should fight next, I think that, pardon me, he obviously wants the Usman fight, believes he can win the Usman fight. But I think he's just being realistic when he weighs it up and knows that he may not necessarily be next in line for it because there's other dudes in the division. Like you got obviously the Burns fight coming up. Then you got Leon Edwards waiting in the wings. So I think he's just sort of setting himself up and putting it out there that, if it's not a title fight, it's Street Judas, Journeyman George. And
wow, you're just on the bandwagon.
You're
drinking Colby's Kool-Aid.
No. When I speak about somebody, I just get in their sort of mindset and their framework about it. If that fight went down, I honestly hope Jorge flying knees him in 3 seconds this time. You know what I mean? But so yeah. Look, I just think that there's a lot of interesting fights in the welterweight division. And yeah, man.
Fair enough. Well, we also had Cowboy versus Nico Price. I guess this was a bit underwhelming just by the fact that it was a draw in the end. Main reason, seems like Price would have got the victory, but there was some a few eye pokes in there, and the referee deducted a point from Price. And so on the scorecards, it ended up being a draw in the end, which you don't see too much of in the UFC really. So that kind of made it a bit underwhelming. Yeah, like it was a good back and forth, mostly a striking match. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a hard one. Like Dana was talking in the post-fight press conference, like maybe it's time to have a talk with Cowboy, as in like, why are you doing this at this point? I think he lost his past 4. This one's a draw. Just, like, I mean, if he's not really going to be in a position to have another title run, and a dude who's taken as much damage as him, and he's been a legend of the sport, he's got a young family as well. Yeah, I would kind of agree with that sentiment. I don't know if it's really worth Cowboy. I know he loves fighting, and he that's just sort of what he does. But I think he's got enough interest and probably enough money at this point outside the sport where it might be time for Cowboy to wrap it up. That's my opinion anyway. But yeah, Price looked all right. But like I said, it was a draw, not really a dominant win or anything like that. So yeah, what was your reactions to that?
So first thing first, I've got a potentially unpopular asshole-ish opinion, but once again, we know I'm an asshole, Chich. Now, I love, right, when after the fight, two fighters coming together. Oh, man, that was a great fight. You were awesome, blah, blah, blah. You know, respect. I'm all for some respect, right? Do you know what I'm not for? When fighters borderline suck each other's dicks,
Oh
Chich.
no.
Jeez, man. Like, it just takes away from everything for me, anyway, for me personally. And again, do not misquote me comments, you know? Like, I don't want every fight to be with just some vile Conor Khabib hatred, right? I love when dudes, Jalen Turner and Brock Weaver last week, they just came together, had a chat. Oh, yeah, what'd you hit me with, dude? Oh, overhand right. Fuck, man, wasn't expecting that. Great fight, dude. Man, Cowboy, Nico Price, I want to be like you, dude. Oh, this guy, he's just such a kick-ass father, dude. Like, it's all cool. Like, don't get me wrong. You know, I'm a prick, yeah? But I'm watching UFC, bro.
There's a fine line, right? Like, I know it depends on the personalities of the fighters, because I think a lot of that was coming from Price. He seemed a bit more.
Yeah.
Cowboy was sort of he's just sort of that decent sort of bloke who
Yeah.
respects his
And
opponent as a sportsman-like. But
And I get it. You see it happen. You imagine coming face to face with your idol, you know, when your idols become your rivals. But geez, I just think there's so much more classy ways you can do it. Stylebender versus Anderson Silva, you know? It's just, but you know, dudes are going to be who they are. But that was just too buddy. Like for me, Cowboy, that whole like where he's already I just hate the idea that he's already thinking about the beers afterwards with the guy, you know, during the fight. That's what it feels like, you know? It's what it felt like with Conor. And then as soon as Conor like turned on him and let him know, no, this is going to be a fight, Cowboy shit himself. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man.
yeah,
But
well,
anyway, that's just,
that's a good
sorry, go.
point. I mean, you look at sort of, I guess, Colby Covington on the same card. Like that dude he was all business. Obviously, he's got his persona in the build up to sell the fight and all that sort of thing. But you can tell, like, he's in there to fight. He's there to compete. He's there to win. It's not personal necessarily. And he's thinking about the next fight. He's very focused on what he's there to do, like as a professional. And they're in a cage to fight each other. And maybe it is that sort of competitive edge that separates the dudes who are sort of like just on the outside versus the dudes who are really contending and become like the top of their chosen sport, whichever one it is. So that is a good point.
I can't necessarily speak to what Cowboy was, you know, maybe 6-7 years ago. Did he have more of that angry competitive edge or not? I assume he probably had a little bit more of a chip on his shoulder being a younger guy, but from all accounts that I sort of understand, he was pretty similar. Like, you know, just take fight last minute notice. Like he was never really fighting for a title. That was his whole thing. His last title run that, I've never sort of gone for a title. Now I'm making it about the title. So, yeah, so for having to think about it, it sounds like Cowboy's always been sort of the same guy.
It's kind of a difficult one because it seems like if that is your personality, you'd have to like make up a character like a Colby Covington if you wanted to sell it differently, you know.
And I just feel like it doesn't help his case going forth as well. It's like, why are you here? Like if it wasn't for the title then and you were winning, now you're losing, you know, come on, why are you actually here? So I know it's all like heartbreaking and whatever, and the MMA it's just Cowboys got like a huge cult following, and in all blatancy, like I don't know how to butter it up today. Like I don't really get it if I'm being honest. But you know, he's awesome. But you know,
I mean, I guess you have to look at the sort of the career, the legacy is built over time.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
for sure.
One of the most, I mean, maybe the most wins in the UFC. Like so. Yeah, it's hard to compare someone at the end of their career to like what they were in their prime.
True, that is a very good point.
Biased by what you've seen lately, so
Lum, thanks for checking me. Actually, can't wait for the comment that's like, "Oh, the most wins UFC."
You got to calm down, Lum. That's what I'm saying. But a man who's not going to be calming down at all is our man Johnny Walker, because he seems to only know one way, and that's just like throw it all out in the first round. And so he fought Ryan Spann. And it was kind of a strange one because Walker got clipped, looked like he could have potentially been out pretty early, and then he somehow resurrected himself and ended up beating Ryan Spann. We spoke last week that he's with a new camp with John Kavanagh. I think it will probably take a few fights before we start to really see a bit of an influence with his fighting style. I imagine those things take time to sort of take effect. I'm guessing, but yeah, man, Walker gets it done in the winning column, and yeah, I guess it's a wide open lightweight division, a light heavyweight division at this point. We've also got Reyes and Blatch, which we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. Yeah, what do you have to say about Johnny Walker, Lum? What controversial comments do you have?
I've just got a shit analogy. I don't really have any controversial comments. Just Johnny Walker, his gas tank, right? If that's 3 rounds, that's 1 round, and he's just in 1 round.
Why not just leave it all out there though?
Hey, good point. Just fucking juice it out. No, look, it got him the win, right? First of all, I was super interested to see what he'd do under Frothy's Kavanagh. You said a good point that, it's not really going to show until you've had a couple camps, start spending a lot more time with the guys and the team and stuff. So that's a good point, considering that, he was at Faraz, now he's at Kavanagh. But no, I just like his personality, man, at the moment. Just to touch on that for a second. Relaxed. He just sat there and did some Zen shit after he won the fight, rather than doing the worm and bullshit. He said respect out to Faraz Zahabi, respect, thank you, John Kavanagh, thank you, all his coaches, whatever. He just seems like he's being a humble guy. But just, yeah, it was a little bit like, from my standpoint, like, a fair Johnny Walker fan, I like the guy. He's just too wobbly, man. And he gets too, like, he was clipped so easy by Spann and credit to him for surviving, definitely, and then ultimately getting the win. Whatever you make of headshots, back headshots, like, my opinion used to be different of them. I used to be much more like, that's definitely to the back of the head, until I I learned what actual back of the head is and stuff. And it's like, as long as you're like sort of clipping the ears, and it's like the back of the head is just apparently like, literally just a sort of like mohawk shape across there. So I don't know. I think it has to be very clear, like hammer fist to the back of the head for it to be illegal. So from what, I haven't watched the replay too many times, but I, don't think they were illegal from what I remember. And yeah, great survival. I just wish he'd keep his like fundamentals like more sort of in check. But at the same time, Spann was throwing like a hammer. So, he got caught with that. And, geez, unlucky you go down because it's a big bomb. Yeah. What did you think?
Yeah, that is always I feel like that's always the danger with the real heavy dudes, because they're hitting so hard. Like, even if you're an underdog or not a favorite, like, you just connect. Like, these dudes are so strong. And there's just a chance that you'll win it. And I felt like Spann was really close to doing that. Like, he got him with a good shot early on. And yeah, man, I think, he would have to be a bit more defensively minded. Like, you see the difference. I know we're talking about the cream of the crop, but someone like a John Jones, like, he's just not getting, I guess it's a bit different because he's got such a chin on him, but you're not going to get like almost knocked out in the first round. Like, you don't really see that with a John Jones. So I think being a bit more defensively minded, but like I said, he's still got a lot of room to grow, Johnny Walker, but managed to get the win, so credit to him.
Yeah, and just while being a little bit controversial today, a little bit of discredit to Spann and team, because just regardless of what happens in the fight, and it obviously wasn't clear cut, just illegal. There's some speculation there and stuff like that. The way they handled it, the way the coaches were screaming out that's to the back of the head, to the back of the head. And then apparently they were running over to like Dana and whatever to contest everything. Ryan Spann was screaming out like, that was punch me in the back of the head. And he was just being a bit of a class A sook about it. To be honest, in considering that I don't believe it was super clear cut, and and also get out of that position. So that's my opinion on that. I think he was a bit classless in defeat.
Good point. I didn't actually see that, but thanks for bringing it up. Another, I guess not too much to talk about. This one was pretty dominant, but Mackenzie Dern submitted Randa Marcos, which I think was expected. Yeah, Mackenzie Dern looked good, man. So yeah, I guess we'll just see. She seems like she wants to get in another one before the year's said and done. So yeah, I think she looked really good in the strawweight division, and they're sort of like
I,
slowly building her.
I'm not going to pretend that I understand jiu-jitsu too much, but from what I've been hearing, it was like Random Marcos made some pretty devastating errors early on. She allowed Dern to just bring her to the ground while they were both dry. And then again, I can't give you the specifics, but apparently Randa was sort of just, left herself in a very vulnerable position. And, it's just, you don't do that against Mackenzie Dern. Supposedly she's done that against like some of the highest level grapplers in the world.
She is known for her grappling, so you'd expect that.
That was awesome. Good. Well done.
To open the card, we had Kevin Holland versus Darren the Dentist Stewart. And this was actually a pretty close one, an exciting one. Like I think we were talking about this a bit before. Kevin Holland's a pretty fun, entertaining dude, like a bit of a showman in the octagon. And so he seemed like he won the first 2 rounds, and they were sort of like close-ish, but you'd give him to Holland. And then the Dentist had a really strong 3rd round, and it was a close one. And I guess significantly after the fight, Kevin Holland went over to Dana White and said, let's run it back. I don't really feel like I won that fight, or it was too close to really call, which is, I think Dana took on board and was really impressed by the class behind that. And also Holland said that, maybe if Damian Maia pulls out against Chimaev, that he wants to have a crack at him as well. So it seems like another dude is really keen and motivated to do well in that division. So what'd you make of Holland versus the Dentist?
First of all, I love how since we sort of spoke about it, had a bit of a laugh off air, he's just now the Dentist.
That's definitely one of the best names you could come up with. The fucking Dentist, in a fucking cage fighting competition.
Look, I don't know why he's called the Dentist, but I'm gonna assume it's got something to do with fucking knocking teeth out with knuckles. Yeah. That's just my assumption. So that is class A nickname. Look, I completely understand fighter mentality, right? The fighter mentality is it's be or be killed. And from someone like Kevin Holland's standpoint, if he, in the last round of the fight, in the closing moments, is just like, fuck, man, I've got nothing here. That is going to feel, as a martial artist, as a fighter, you must feel like, you have not done your job to secure victory. You were not dominant. You did not win a fight. But from a sport standpoint, like the rules, the way it's laid out, it was 2 rounds to 1 and he won the fight. So it's just a hard one. It depends how you want to look at it. But I just think that it needs to be looked at in the way it works, which is it was a 3-round fight. One guy won 2 rounds. One guy won 1 round. We move on.
Yeah.
It's just, that's my opinion. I don't think we need a lot of guys recently. We need to run it back. We need to run it back. We need to, straight after the fight, talking about running it back. It's like, in 90% of the cases, it's like, in my opinion, it's just like, no, I just saw it. Let's move on. How about that?
Yeah. I think,
that's just me. No, I was just going to say that's just me. But I understand the sort of the fighter mentality who wants to make it clear cut, concise. I am better than you. I won. You know what I mean? So I understand both sides.
Sure. Maybe if it had have gone the 5 rounds, then maybe he felt like, he would have lost.
Well, he said that explicitly in his post-fight press conference. He said he said, if that was a 5-rounder, I was done, So you're spot on the money.
That was a huge card, man. And we've got another huge one coming up. And this is one that we've been sort of excited about. I've been watching a lot of the promos in the build up to this one. It's Israel, the last stylebender, Adesanya, undefeated 19-0 versus Paulo Borrachinha Costa, who's also undefeated. So, and man, I've really enjoyed the dynamic of these two dudes going back and forth in interviews and stuff like that, and at live events as well, calling each other out, making fun of each other. They're both absolutely top of the game. I don't think there's any other fight you'd really want to see at the top tier in the middleweight division. And man, I just watched the UFC countdown of Adesanya and Costa that just came out. And it's really cool, man. Like at the start, I sort of did buy into Adesanya, just mainly because I didn't know much about Costa. This dude's just a big brawler, aesthetic buffoon, and Adesanya's just going to pick him apart. I was sort of buying into that a little bit, like sort of subconsciously. But now the more and more I see of Costa, I was talking to a mutual friend about this actually, the more I see of Costa is the more I start to like him. You start to get a bit more of an understanding of his personality. Seems like actually a decent bloke. And a part of it, and this goes back to the Cowboy Nico Price thing, they actually just ran into each other at Fight Island. And they were actually kind of a bit too cordial, if you get me. There was no Conor Khabib like, do something, do something.
Are you talking about Israel Costa?
Yes, I just
Yeah,
saw
I saw that clip as well. Yeah, that was interesting. That was very, but in saying that, they were definitely sizing each other up. Don't get that mistaken.
Absolutely, but it would kind of be nice if UFC could organize it where they can kind of cross paths, but they're not too like, let's touch each other, if you get me. Like that's just me as far as preserving like the real like competitive, like you want a little bit of animosity there, and then you be mates after the fight sort of thing. But I think there still is, obviously from a competitive standpoint. But regardless, man, I'm so keen for this because I'm not so 100% sure about Adesanya. I mean, the thing is, Costa seems to know one way, come forward and just rip bombs. And the thing is, Adesanya can actually get hit. We've seen it in the Gastelum fight. We've seen it in some other fights here and there, but he seems to like always find a way to win. But in saying that, it could be a Robert Whittaker scenario where he just does the, slip out the way and hit him with like a hook or something like that. I could definitely see that happening, but yeah, we'll see how we go. But like, honestly, I think this is more of a coin flip. This doesn't seem like a real we haven't seen enough flaws in either dude's game where I think you could really predict this with any kind of certainty. And that's the beauty of it. But yeah, what do you make of, now that we're getting closer to it, has your perception of Adesanya and Costa changed over time?
Yeah, well, so first thing, just want to say, I definitely agree with you that Izzy can get hit. Like he can get hit. But I think one thing that separates him is he's so good at adjusting as soon as he gets hit. Like, as soon as he felt that power of Romero, and I don't give a fuck what anyone says. Meatheads can say that, he feels the power and runs away. But all right, bro, like okay, walk straight in the power. Good idea.
Yeah.
So, so he copped it, learned his lesson, changed game plan. That is the thing that separates Israel from the others. It's the experience and the, on the fly. Like I feel like, if there's just a level of focus in a fight, he has just got that mastered. And then there's people like Tyron Woodley, you say, I guess that's the perfect example, who just like, that focus is lost in there. It would seem anyway, just as an example. So, I think that a lot is to be said about the reach differential. So we obviously know Stylebender's he's got a lot of dexterity, a lot of that Matrix-esque movement and stuff. Borichinya's got those T-Rex arms loaded to the gills with power, but it's just about if he can find him. And that seems to be general consensus. I don't think I'm saying anything very revolutionary there. And but let me fantasy book this weekend for you, please, Chich, just really quickly.
Please.
Okay. We have a normal main event. We have a fucking normal ass main event, right? Up until the co-main, right? You know how then we get the promo of when they're doing the shadow boxing, and it's like, up next, we've got the undefeated contender, Paulo Costa, right? You've got that, and it's Costa, right? Fucking out comes from out of nowhere, Khamzat Chimaev, right? He fucking drags Costa down and chokes. Actually, not from behind, because he's not a heel. He's like the Stone Cold. He's the renegade. So so he fucking comes out and like, he's just like taps Costa on the shoulder and he's like, And it's almost like a money in the bank situation where it's just like me, you right fucking now. And, you know, winner goes out there and Khamzat just sparks him, kills Costa,
so
kayfabe kills Costa. Sorry, go.
all right. So yeah, he chokes out Adesanya and then cashes in Money in the Bank. Goes out there, no one's expecting this, so you know everyone at home's going nuts, and then sparks Costa like unexpectedly and runs away with the title. So they've obviously
Well,
stripped Israel as well.
other way around. Sorry. So like gets Costa in the back, then goes out and fights for the title against Adesanya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
right,
basically, he just comes in, steals the spot from Costa because it's fucking his and his middleweight, right, as well. And he just knocked out Meerschaert, who's a solid middleweight, and then goes out there, you know. And then I don't have the booking, but then Adesanya and Khamzat Chimaev fight for the title, and then whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I think
That's my booking.
that'll definitely happen. So, look, I wouldn't even be mad.
Seriously.
That'd be fucking crazy.
Nah, what the fuck you be mad for?
You just imagine then Gerald Meerschaert comes in with a steel chair and just like fucks up. He's just got a chip on his shoulder. he's got a sledgehammer. He's just like, you know, fuck you, like all the disrespect. Then he like goes after Dana White as well. How dare you fucking book me? Just like this monster comeback heel run. Like, cause they have to like change up his personality now. He's a bit too cordial, a bit too vanilla beforehand, and yeah, I could see that happening. So who do you have?
You know, back on a serious note, yeah, you're gonna ask me who do I have? Israel-Costa?
Sure. Well, like who are you favoring? Like,
oh, for fucking fuck's sake, Chich, man! Like, I'm seriously like split down the middle, and I think most of the MMA community is. It's just like because for all that is to be said about Israel's fight IQ, we haven't seen Costa be unsuccessful yet, and that's hard to bet against.
I think one of the key points is that if it goes into the later rounds, we haven't seen Costa in the later rounds, so that's a question mark. Like, will he gas? Like, he's a big dude,
and Stylebender's a proven championship round fighter.
Yes, so that could be a big factor if Costa can't get him out of there early. What happens in those later rounds? You might just genuinely pick him apart. Adesanya.
So interested, honestly. It's just, and that's what's so intriguing because it's like fight IQ versus brawn, and it's not as simple as that. But it's just, you know, that's their key themes you could take out of it.
Israel sort of said that in the countdown that I just watched. He's like, it's just aesthetics. Like, obviously, you know, trying to build the fight and that sort of thing. But you know, I reckon part of him probably genuinely thinks that, like, as in, like you do the analysis, you look at my skill set, all the different strikes, different angles that he could throw at him versus what we've seen from Costa, which is, you know, big power punching, but, you know, I don't think we've seen too much of him on the ground, Costa. So, yeah, we'll have to see it. I mean, that's the beauty of it. We're going to find out.
To add one more thing, anyone who thinks that Costa's just going to run out and just, you know, have his way with Stylebender, I implore you to watch Costa versus Uriah Hall, even though it was a while ago. If Costa hasn't fixed up some of those issues from, you know, he had in that fight, Stylebender is going to have his absolute way with him. But, you know, that was, I think, like at least a year ago, couple of years. So, you know, he's probably... It's a hard point of reference, but I'm just saying it's just an interesting one to think about.
We've also got Dominic, I beat John Jones Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz. So this is kind of an interesting one because it's for the light heavyweight, vacant light heavyweight belt. And these dudes at the top of the division. And yeah, man, we kind of spoke about this a few weeks back, but yeah, I guess this is anyone's ball game. It's kind of interesting now that John Jones isn't there. There's no Daniel Cormier either. So it'll kind of be interesting to see how this division sort of unfolds, starting with this fight. But we'll see if any of these dudes can win and then reign for a while, or it's just going to be a sort of like a hardcore championship in WWE where anyone can kind of like just run in and win it at any given point on their given day. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see play out. I'll probably have to give it to Reyes because other than the Jones fight, he hasn't really looked. He's looked pretty good. Like, he's been knocking dudes out and looked very dominant, and obviously, you know, an athlete, like he keeps saying. So And yeah, no, he's very good. So I probably have Reyes in that one. Do you have any more to say?
Just the video we were talking about earlier with Israel and Costa about them like being sort of semi cordial, whatever. John Jones commented that video, both bitches.
Bro, I love it. I just love that. Like, we're all buddies. Then there's the
Yeah, you're a bitch.
Oh man, honestly, I was laughing at that in my head the whole time you were talking. Like I was listening. It was about Reyes and Blokovic, but I was just dying to say that so bad. But fucking yeah, look, I agree with you. I was listening. It's Reyes all day for me. I think he hasn't shown a lot that says, he will lose to Jan, basically. Like it's just got really close to John Jones, if not won the fight. I think that actually I would be interested to rewatch the Oezdemir fight, actually, because a lot of people have Reyes losing that fight. But I can't really remember the dynamic of it too well. So I might have a rewatch of that beforehand if I don't fall asleep, and we'll see how we go. But Reyes, Blakovic, look, it's just I think it helps that like a lot of people think Reyes beat Jones because you have like it doesn't feel like a just second best light heavyweight champion, if you will. But at the same time, I think that division has a bit of establishing to do without John Jones.
Agreed. Just before we wrap up, our man Michael Chandler, we've been talking about him potentially signing with the UFC. It's become official now, and it's not just official. He's going to be a potential replacement for the Khabib Gaethje fights. He's going to be over at Fight Island. And this is absolutely crazy. And this sort of came about because Dustin Poirier and Tony Ferguson fell through. And so they've signed Chandler. Apparently Chandler was offered to Ferguson and Poirier, I believe, and neither of them really wanted it, potentially out of respect for each other, but there's also money issues as well, and whether they really have too much to gain from fighting someone like a Michael Chandler who's never fought in the UFC, even though he's had a storied career outside. But man, could you imagine like either Khabib or Gaethje pulls out and Chandler comes in? I mean, it's kind of hard. I'd favor him stylistically a lot more against Gaethje, just given that Chandler's a striker and a wrestler, versus someone like Khabib, who's, top of the food chain. And, but I guess like the story of it is just, man, talk about just persisting through like a storied MMA career and, 34 years of age, and you get signed by the biggest company in the world. And not just signed, you're potentially going to fight one of the greats of the sport if things fall through, or you might even be in line for like an interim belt if he fights Gaethje. And yeah, like, I mean, I think it's just a testament to like the journey and the hard work paying off over a long period of time. And my mate, Michael Chandler, he's in there, man. And I'm keen to follow his journey and see if he can make a stand. But even if he doesn't like fight in there, like you'd think he's gonna, now that he's in that conversation, the UFC has sort of put him in there. He might fight someone like a Dan Hooker or a Charles Oliveira, or yeah, like it could be anyone. And I'm just excited to see. He's just like another dynamic, exciting fighter to have in that stacked lightweight division. So it just makes the pot more interesting, if you get me. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I think Dana's gone for broke there. He's taking no chances in losing his main event. He doesn't want the same fuckery that was the Khabib Ferguson card and then trying to figure out last minute replacement. I feel like he just wants to have his ends covered. The whole UFC wants to have their ends covered, and they're sort of just laying it out and giving us a bit of notice that no matter what happens, we're getting a card and it's going to be kick ass, and there's no issue here. And plus, yeah, Michael he's proven, like, he's genuinely proven. I didn't know he was 34 though, but yeah, he doesn't look and seem like a 34-year-old man.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, another thing would be, it's also a statement from Dana, I think, to dudes like who don't want to fight. Like he always has spoken about this, because there's been like such There's been a lot of fighters like Masvidal, Jones, and the like, who've been complaining about pay. And Dana's just saying, from our end, like, we're a business. Like, you don't have to fight. Like, we're not putting a gun to anyone's head. Like, we'll bring in someone else if you don't want it. And this is a case of Chandler seizing the opportunity, it seems like. So it might really pay off. And we'll see how we go. But yeah, that's your average punters on a Monday morning. And
Another one
Mig,
in the books.
thank you for joining me.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Solid. I know, like we say this every week, but I genuinely mean it. It's fucking gonna be a great next week of fights. I'm so keen for Israel-Costa. It's genuine fight of the year contender already. Like, I can already sort of see it. And yeah, general consensus, it's not going to be the same as Romero and Israel. It's going to be a little bit more exciting. So let's do it, Chich. I can't wait for next week to break it down.
easy. Cheers, Meg. Talk to you soon.